Welcome to the David and the Bear podcast. Let's have a good time. Yes, sir. Welcome back, everybody, to the David and the Bear podcast. I don't even know what episode this is, but we'll figure that out later. Thank y'all for tuning in to all the previous episodes. We really do appreciate it. And today is another very special guest. I actually gave her her nickname, actually. She is an amazing person. She is, let me know if I get this wrong, but she is the hospitality manager here at the Orion Amphitheater in Huntsville, Alabama. I think I got that correct.
That is correct.
Yeah, so see guys, I know my people. Her name is Alex Hendrix. She produces music. She's an amazing songwriter, talented on the vocals. She's also great at what she does here at the Orion, and I think I covered all my bases. If y'all don't know her, now you do. She's on Spotify, not Apple Podcast. She can be on Apple Podcast now.
Yeah, now I would be.
She's also on Apple Music, YouTube, any place that you find music, she's there. So without further ado, I'll let her explain the rest of herself, I guess.
Oh my gosh, that's such a lovely introduction.
That's right.
Also, want to say that the nickname you gave me is my favorite nickname anyone has ever given me in my life, and it's Henny. I don't know if you said that in the intro.
Just like Hennessy, yeah. That's where it came from. That's where my mind went.
It's just such a perfect nickname. I love it so much. But yeah, no, that pretty much sums me up. Singer-songwriter. I've been playing locally for, 15 years now. And been, for the last 3 or so years, really putting out at least a couple songs a year and trying to get it out there. So
We love that. So, assuming locally means the Huntsville area?
yeah, Huntsville area. I've done a couple of little quick tours. I did a South Florida tour, and then I've done a North Carolina tour, but they've all been pretty quick. I'm not made for the road. I don't thrive in that setting.
So, touring and all that kind of stuff, has that always been, or not touring, but songwriting, making music, producing, has that always been your passion when you were growing up, or has that changed a lot?
100%. I think that I always consider myself a writer much more than a musician, because I started playing music because I had so much to say and so many feelings. And music was always really important to me growing up. I always really connected with lyrics. It was something I shared a lot with my dad and my mom, like them explaining lyrics to me from songs that they loved and showing me the songs that meant a lot to them at my age. But I think I really started playing music because I had something to say and I just needed an outlet for it, more than there are people who are just insanely good at instruments. Like Matt Bakula, who works with us, is one of those people. My best friend Matt Morrow is one of those people. Like, they can just pick up something and play it and just know how to do it instinctually. And that has never been my thing. That is not me.
So, I guess kind of tapping into the deeper side of you and who you are, because for people who don't know you, they might be like, oh, your music is kind of a little bit on the dark side.
That's
so
fair.
So what do you think is one of your biggest challenges in life that either inspire you to make the music that you do, or just in general, what is one of your biggest challenges in life?
I write a ton about mental illness and mental health. I was diagnosed with manic depression, which is bipolar disorder, when I was 19. And that's been a part of my life since before I knew that that was the cause of it. But I also write a lot about the patterns of addiction and growing up with an alcoholic parent and just grief. And I think that for me, I like listening to music that is fun, but there are times when I really need a connection. And for me, that's what my music is about. And I've had people come up to me after shows and say, like, oh my gosh, I've never heard somebody put that into words.
Hmm.
What I was feeling, I didn't know other people felt that way. But it's the connection of putting your own darkness out there so that other people know they're not alone with
Hmm.
theirs.
So do you feel like because a lot of people allow I guess not the addiction, but the disability that they have, because that's what the doctors are gonna call it. It's gonna be called a disability
Sure.
or a label or whatever, a handicap. Um, do you feel like that has um, affected you in a better way or a worse way, or has it even become a part of your personality? Because a lot of people allow it to become a part of their personality.
Sure. Like the label of it, you mean?
Yeah.
I just don't really subscribe to the stigma. I
Hmm.
think that I grew up in a setting where it was really not in my family, like my close family was actually really open and transparent. My dad's a doctor, and my mom is just like really well read and like understanding and empathetic about things like that. Um, so my parents, I think, probably knew that I had a mental illness before I knew, because I mean there were signs, Devon. But I grew up until I really kind of stepped out on my own and went to college and I guess expanded my circle
Hmm.
because I grew up in a bubble, and that circle was really small, and people had certain ideas about it and certain stigmas attached to it, and it's like once I broke free of that, I just never looked back,
Hmm.
and I have been really really lucky that people appreciate that about me. I think that the more open you are about it and the more nonchalant you are about it, people really respond to that in, a way that it makes them understand a
Oh,
little bit better that
100%.
it's chill. I mean, it's not chill always.
So growing up and all that kind of stuff, and um, you know, doing the things that you're doing now, if you could go back and I guess the day of your diagnosis, you get diagnosed with what was it again?
Manic depression or
Man-
bipolar.
Manic depression or bipolar. What would you tell that Alex Hendrix? If you could tell her something, what would you tell her with all the information you have now?
I think that I would tell her that it gets smaller and smaller on the pie chart
Mm,
the longer you go.
I like that.
Um, I think at that time of my life, I mean, your late teens, early 20s for mental illness in general is a
Mhm.
time in a lot of people when it manifests strongest, and your hormones are shifting and your behavior can be really erratic, and you're going through all these life changes. So that in general is a really difficult time
Mhm.
for people who have mental illness. Um, and I think at that time it seemed so all consuming. And I was at a place in my life where I didn't know how to be what people wanted me to be and
Mhm.
also be mentally ill and also, be
Mhm.
what I needed myself to be. And I think that I would also remind little Alex that you have the choice. Like,
Mhm.
you make the choices. Not in respect to mental illness a lot, because obviously that deeply influences the choices you are able and capable of making.
Mhm.
But in respect to the situations you put yourself in, you
Yep.
make the choice to be in the situations that make you feel seen and understood,
Mhm.
or you make the choices to stay in situations that make you feel bad about
That's
yourself.
valid. So, going back to your college and getting out there, expanding your circle. I'm assuming meeting friends along the way and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What do you think? How do you pick your friends? I guess the question should be.
Ooh.
What do you look for? What do you see? What do you want to see in your friends?
I feel like I am a person who has a really close group of people that I really trust.
Mhm.
And then I also kind of friends with everybody.
Mhm.
But I keep this little group pretty tight to me
Mhm.
in like a found family way. um, and with people in general, I mean, open-mindedness, someone that is authentic, I think is really
Mhm.
important to me, and someone who just does what they say they're going to do
That's valid.
in an emotional way.
Mm.
It's like, I'm fine if you cancel plans. It's different if you're like, hey, I love you so much. I want to be here for you. And then
Mhm.
you're just not. Like,
Mm.
that's a different situation.
I feel like we all had people in our lives do that, to be honest.
Right. Just don't say it. Don't bother.
So, a lot of times, the artist or the musician gets their inspiration from something or someone. Who or what do you feel inspires you the most, either in your song creation, um, your personal life, or even at like your job? Because I know we both know that sometimes this job isn't for the weak.
Right. Yeah, it takes a
So,
strong constitution.
so what do you feel? Who do you feel inspires you at work, at home, um, even when you're out there having fun in your, and also like when you're behind a mic creating music in the booth and doing all that?
I feel like from a writing perspective, traveling really inspires me. I feel like I'm always writing something
Hmm.
when I'm traveling because it's all these beautiful things and
Hmm.
it's expansive and it's really it just gives you a new perspective every time no matter where you go.
Hmm.
Um but I feel like I'm inspired by kind of odd things. Like, I mean, there are the pretty traditional like songwriters that inspire me, like Phoebe Bridgers. I think
Hmm.
her lyrics are incredibly inspiring. Um, always make me feel like I want to write something
Hmm.
similar. And I grew up on 60s and 70s folk, which kind of is the same thing where it's
Hmm.
like I hear it and I'm like, oh, I relate to that. I want to write something that makes me feel
Hmm.
like that made me feel. But I feel like I get really inspired by like Victorian Gothic literature
Mm.
and like certain, I think aesthetics are very inspiring to me.
Aesthetics.
Moody things and aesthetic things and things that just spark something in your brain that goes, yeah, I like when I look at that, I want to write something that makes me feel like I feel when I look at that.
Mm. She's a artistic mind, we like to say.
Or she's crazy.
Crazy. I feel like we're all crazy at a
That's
certain
true.
point.
What's the bar for that?
So you you've performed and all that kind of stuff, and you've written music. You've gone on the road, like you said, traveling, did a Florida tour and all that kind of stuff. Have performed in front of a bunch of people locally. Since you're constantly putting your message out there as an artist, as a songwriter, and all that kind of stuff, I'm not gonna lie. Some of your songs have inspired me.
Thank you. That is
Like
the nicest thing anyone could ever say to me, genuinely.
so like if y'all don't know, she has a song called Tornado Season, which I replayed on Spotify for like a week straight. Like every single day, as long as I was awake, I replayed that song. It's a great song, talking about like how everything can change within a split moment. Um, if you could send a message to a large group of people, who would those people be, and what would your message be?
Ooh, that's a great question. I feel like, man, I think, well, I'm going to do it from the lens of tornado season because I think that is, my mind is going so many different places at once in that question that I feel like I have to draw horse blinders for myself. Or I'm just going to stutter for like 5 straight minutes.
It's okay. It's okay.
So tornado season is at its root a song about having someone. Okay, here's where tornado season came from. Let's start there. I had genuinely, this is true. I had recurring dreams about tornadoes for
Mm.
years and years and years in my life. And there would be dreams where I was just like living my life, and all of a sudden tornado sirens would go off, or I would just see a tornado coming, people would start screaming, and I would have to like try to figure out how to save myself. And it was always that same kind of dream that I was just living life, and all of a sudden out of nowhere a tornado came. And it took me figuring out what that represented in my life to stop having those dreams. I had them for years and years and years. And in my little dream brain, that was a representation of I had someone very important in my life who caused a lot of chaos. And every time you would think that you were over something, they would swoop back in and they would kind of create this tornado.
Almost like a pestering ex.
Right. Right. Or a father. So I think Tornado Season is a song about reclaiming that relationship and not being a victim to it again, and realizing that this person has had this power to kind of swoop in and really mess you up. And it feels so painful every time, but at the very end of the song, it's like, I'm picking me at this point. And I think that that song is really just like a song for, I mean, it's for anybody, but if I had to pick a group of people, it's like children of alcoholics, because that is the pattern there. And so the message would be like, pick yourself, you know? You can't keep, like, it's like this for all of us, and you can't keep letting it tornado you down.
So, staying on the topic of music and songs, what's your theme song?
Ooh.
And why?
It depends on what my mood is at the time.
So okay. Here, let's do like 3 scenarios.
Okay.
Let's paint the scenario. So the first scenario, you're waking up in the morning. You may have gone to sleep a little late the evening before.
Yeah.
I'm
pulling up my Spotify as you described this.
So you're running on like maybe 4 or 5 hours of sleep, which is probably more than we typically get. But running on 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and you're rolling out of bed. You completely forgot to brush your hair. You have no coffee in your system.
That sounds correct. This is all tracking. Keep going.
And you completely forgot you had like an 8:30 meeting, and it's 8:25. Theme song.
Oh, that theme song would be, I'm looking at, okay, so we've recently made playlists for The Office, like Spotify playlists. I'm looking at all the songs on, on that. I feel like Late March, Death March by Frightened Rabbit would be the theme song for that. Frightened Rabbit is a band that's like one of the most inspiring songwriters I've ever listened to. Love him so much. Scott Hutchison, rest in peace. And all of his stuff is so self-deprecating. And sometimes it's clever, and sometimes it's like a gut punch. But on a day when everything is going wrong, that is such a good thing to put on, because it's like upbeat, but it's also angsty. And like, I think you need something that's like, okay, let me channel this bad energy to something at least like a little productive.
Yeah. Okay, so scenario number 2. Okay,
I'm ready.
So you're on your way to work, right? Everything is going very swell so far. You woke up on time. You had ample amount of time of sleep. However, you get to work and you realize there's a leak coming from your tire.
Oh no.
Yeah. Theme song.
That would have to be Authority Song by Jimmy Eat World, I think. Again, if something's going wrong and I'm trying to turn it around and not wallow in it, which at the beginning of a day, I have to turn it around. I can't let myself go there. It has to be something that's like, I feel like anything in a like 90s, 2000s, or like post-punk energy, angst. I just have to tap into the angst of it all, and then I can maybe salvage myself.
Okay, and then the third scenario, you're having the best day of your life. You had 6 to 7 hours of sleep the night before.
Incredible.
You had your 2 cups of coffee.
You know I'm doing 6 shots of espresso a day minimum.
You went to that 8:30 meeting. You went to your 10 o'clock meeting. You had all your paperwork for both meetings. Nobody's yelling at you in the meeting.
Excellent.
Ryan's in a good mood today.
What? Is it a magic day?
And then on top of that, everybody goes home early.
What a beautiful day.
What's your theme song?
Ultimate feel-good theme song for me is Baby You're a Rich Man by the Beatles.
Not the Beatles.
That to me is like sunshine and self-confidence in a song. I
Ooh.
love that song.
Well, guys, I think we can just end the podcast on that was crazy.
Should I drop the mic?
So I'm gonna do one more question before I open the floor to you and to ask me any questions or pose a question to the listeners. Think back to a time, whether it be your childhood, heading into college, after you got your diagnosis, wherever that time may be for you. Think back to a time where you felt transformed. How did you change and why?
I have spent a lot of time the past few years figuring out exactly that, like the things that are positive triggers for me and the things that rework my brain chemistry in a way that's helpful to me. And I've gotten really into journaling every day. I've been doing it for almost 3 years now, and I'm not always consistent with it because I'm not a consistent person, period. But I feel like the way you will transform when you start writing down your mantras for yourself, and they can change all the time, but like I've had one recently that's like, why questions I pose myself, and I'll pose them right back to the listener. Why are you saving all of your sparkle for people who wouldn't pick you when you could be giving it to everybody? You know, and that kind of goes back to the fact that we just did these Clifton assessments. I'm sure Camaro was talking about them. But one of my number 5 was relator, and that is those like intense, deep, connected one-on-one relationships. And that's how I have friendships. But occasionally your instinct is wrong about the people that you feel like you can trust. And so I have to sometimes take a step back and go like, hey, you are dumping all of your time and energy into like grabbing onto people and not letting go when they wouldn't do the same thing to you. And you would get more fulfillment if you stop that. So that thing that's a strength, quote unquote, of mine also really leads to a lot of like isolation and loneliness on my end because you put your eggs in so few baskets and people just naturally are gonna do what they do. So yeah, that's been one of my like journaling and writing it out to yourself. Like, why are you doing this? So that you can look back and go, why am I doing that?
Wasting my time with ignorant people.
Well, and being your own hype man in general, like no matter what it's about, just being able to be like the self-analysis and the self-awareness to go, you're doing this thing and it makes you sad. Why are you doing that?
And honestly, I feel like if you're not your own hype man, then
nobody's gonna be. Yeah. You have to be able to, to sit down with yourself and ask yourself questions you might not want to hear.
Guys, it's always okay to talk to yourself. Just don't answer back, please.
Yeah, out loud, at least.
So before the closing question, and for my listeners of the David and the Bear podcast, you guys already know the closing question is always going to be that one piece of advice. But before that happens, is there any questions that you would like to ask me or pose to the listeners?
Ooh, what What would you say your like your main creative outlet is? We've talked a lot about my creative outlets.
I'll probably have to say love photography. That passion, I picked up that passion my senior year of high school. I'm 21 now, so y'all can do the math. I'll let y'all figure that out. Um, so I'm 21 now. I've been doing photography since my senior year, and I picked that up because at first I wanted to join the military. But for those of y'all who know, I'm in a wheelchair and all that kind of stuff, so really can't run or anything like that anymore.
Sure.
So I picked up photography because I realized that we have stories to tell, and in one shot, 17 different people can look at my shot that I took of a wall or a tree and have 17 different feelings about it.
Yeah, that's so true.
So it's kind of, I love photography because it's kind of one of those things. It's up to the viewer's interpretation.
Yeah.
Much like painting and art and Van Gogh, because you can look at a Van Gogh painting and be like, oh, this is supposed to be sad, and then Van Gogh can be sitting right there and tell you, no, this is a happy painting. That's not what I feel.
Right, exactly.
So
I think the subjectivity of art is so interesting, especially like you said, especially something where you're really using it as an emotional outlet, and then someone can have totally different emotions looking at it, and it's like, how does it work like that? It's magic.
And then it's almost like one of those things where it's like, oh, it's like even like songwriting and all kind of stuff, and like because I work a lot with sound and all that kind of stuff. It's like this certain sound makes somebody feel like this, but that sound can also make somebody feel happy and outgoing, while it also can make somebody else who has a completely different mindset make them feel sad and depressed.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's one of those things because it taps into everybody's mindset, like from songwriting to photography to art and all that kind of stuff. Um, it allows people to speak freely and at the same time speak to the masses by saying very few to little words.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. I went on a ramble. That's
No,
my
I think
creative-
that was a great answer. That was I loved that.
That's my creative outlet. Is there a question that you would like to pose to the listeners, or?
I feel like this is a very philosophical
Philosophical.
approach, which is another like just a blanket. It piggybacks on just like a blanket piece of advice I'd give anybody at any time, which is don't be afraid to pivot. I think that we as people get really worried about making the wrong decision. And it's fine to make the wrong decision. It's just wrong to stay in the wrong decision and sit in it and let it consume you. So my question to the listeners is, do you have anything you need to pivot in your life? Pivoting. It's fine to have made a wrong choice. Just don't let it dictate everything. Yeah.
So, y'all heard that, listeners? Y'all better be in that comment section answering all these questions you guys heard. But anyway, to close it all up and wrap it all up into one big thing, because as you know, we talked about her successes and we talked about her challenges, where she came from and all that kind of stuff, and the wisdoms that she dropped today was astronomically amazing. So, out of all of the advice that you gave us, that you gave to the podcast today, what's one piece of advice that either you listen to or that you constantly are writing in your journal that you can share with the listeners?
Ooh, I feel like the person that I've listened to, I can't think of like one specific, but I can think of like the vibe of them all. My best friend Allie, who has been my friend for over 15 years now.
Shout out to Allie.
Allie is the best. She is like the yin to my yang in a lot of ways. Like we're both creative, but she's very like task focused, and she's just like both of her parents are engineers and professors, and so it's just kind of like just do it. Like she's like a just do it person, and
Like Nike, like
that
Nike.
is yeah, that's such. It seems like such a trite thing to say, but I think that when you're a creative person who gets in their own head and then lets concern and like fear cloud the decisions you're able to make, having somebody in your corner that just goes, why won't you just do it? Like, you know, you can do it, just do it, is the most, it's the thing that I hear when she's not around.
Just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
Just do it. Y'all heard that? Check marks first. Just do it like Nike. So, unless you have anything more to say, I think that about wraps up our story time.
I think I've talked plenty.
Well, once again, thank you, Henny, for coming on to the podcast today. It was very, very much appreciated.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for my nickname.
And don't forget, guys, check her out on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube. If I'm forgetting something, y'all can just find her, Alex Hendrix. What is your latest release?
I've got a song called Daddy Issues coming out in June.
Well, y'all better hop on that. You know what I'm saying? So check her out. And if y'all are ever in the Huntsville area, she is a very popular name. I believe one of the apartment buildings where we're at is named after
one
her
of the floor plans.
Yeah, so she's a big name. You won't miss her, and if you do, you're looking in the wrong places. So don't look in those places. Come to the lighter side. Thank you for coming out today. I appreciate it. And if you're sitting next to somebody listening to the podcast, be sure to tell them that you love them. And I'll catch y'all in the next one. Thank you for listening to the David and the Bear podcast. Thank you for listening to the David and the Bear podcast, where every story ends in victory. Yes, sir.